Welcome again to the second part of the dialogue, talking about the hero's journey in film. And last week, just to recap, excuse me, we were talking about the Matrix One, and how it tells a certain story of which mirrors a hero's journey. And we started talking about how we kind of was analyzing and breaking down, trying to better understand more in depth, different components of the hero's journey within that film. And that was an awesome dialogue. And you guys did amazing. Thank you so much. You even raised things that we didn't think of. So that was very helpful. And so today we're focusing on the two films, uh, Disney's Up and um, The Lion King by Disney. And so Up, we can start with that one. I think we all know Lion King, so we can just end the dialogue with that or smooth it over. But Up for me was interesting, and I was hoping that you guys kind of saw what we're thinking about in terms of how Up was complicated it wasn't like a very traditional hero's journey. And Disney, in my opinion, Disney did a phenomenal job of telling this very complicated story that had underlying like human issues and human problems and human development. And so instead of me talking today, I'd like to hear from y'all in terms of what y'all thought about it. What came to mind when you were watching this film, as well as what were you feeling? Because that's important too. Because Disney is telling a story in which they intentionally want certain feelings to be evoked or triggered, and they want certain meanings to really pop out. So, what did you both think?
So with the film Up, um, a very beautiful story, sad story, but then it ends with a happy ending. Uh, with that movie, you kind of get to see just how a person is able to like develop a relationship, a very intimate, deep relationship, where the other counterpart understands, accepts them, and believe or have like a mutual belief together. And what happens when that person or that support is no longer there? What do
Yeah.
you do with yourself? Do you lose yourself? And I remember seeing how Carl, he lost his personality, his joy in life as he started to get older. He was alone.
Yeah.
He was like, there is no way I'm going to, nothing is going to change. We're going to stay here no matter what.
Yeah.
And, like little did he know that his wife, even though she wanted to go on this adventure, like all along, it was a journey that she had with him, like the life they shared. Like that was
Yeah.
her adventure, but he felt like he failed.
Yeah.
So that movie, it still makes me cry in some parts. But it really does teach you that you have to move forward. Even at a time of loss, there's still other adventures to encounter.
Well, nicely said. Um, if I could hop on with you, I would also add that it's unlike Disney. The sad part starts early in the movie, and I wasn't ready to embrace that moment. But you see how um, I think it was funny. Can we talk about the funny part? Like after he broke his arm or something, the next scene is they end up married together. Like, and it seemed like he didn't talk at all in the beginning of the movie. Um, and then later on he does, like Yesenia said, like he was very comfortable where he was, very comfortable, but then he was pushed out of his comfort zone because he refused to move. He hit the guy on the head, and they were like, okay, you're going to have to go to a senior. And then he had options, and he said, okay, well, now we're forced to move. And that actually pushed him, and actually it helped him better than it, was sad. Like, oh man, he's moving out of his place. But now it's like, oh no, he's going to somewhere better. And this young boy that's excited to get his badge. Like, that was the only elderly person in the community. Like, he couldn't go nowhere else. Really changed his entire life. It changed his entire life. What I did want to say is when he was going to the paradise, he met his mentor, his idol. And it turned out that he was more of an idol than his mentor was. Because the mentor got stuck within their own comfort zone, living with the dogs, and he didn't understand the love that they had with Kevin. Like, nah, you can't just take his family, take her away or whatever from her kids and stuff like that. She has a family she has to take care of. And beyond everybody else, the little kid understood that more than anybody else. Family and togetherness. And so they created their own family, especially with the little boy, because he didn't even have a father. So we're seeing how those who you expected to be the idol is somewhere else. And I feel like that really describes a hero's journey. So they were all a hero within itself. And it came out of all traumatic situations, right? Like, the older guy lost his wife. He had to become a hero to the Boy Scout. The Boy Scout lost his father. So the old guy became a hero to him, but he became a hero to Kevin. And Kevin had to become a hero to all of them as well to save them out of it. And then Doug, the dog, also was a hero within his own self. Like, everybody came from really traumatic moments, and they all realized that I have to survive for somebody else. So I thought that was powerful. When you think about it, that connection amongst them all, that brought them all together to the end. And now Doug, who was the wimp, the one who was being pushed around, now as the owner, he was running the pack now, someone with the heart, someone that understood right from wrong, someone that, I feel like it's funny because we talked about this last week about the Matrix and stuff like that, being shamed for doing the right thing, right? And Doug was being shamed for doing the right thing, but he became the leader of all, which I thought was powerful. I thought it was really powerful. And you're seeing the shift in dynamics. Like, when you decide not to go with the pack, people will follow. So I just thought that was powerful.
Yeah, spot on. Definitely. Thank you both. That was amazing. You guys definitely hit all points in which we were looking to bring up too. So but seeing those big patterns, good job, and making those connections. And I think even theologically we can express and say that those connections is God. In the motion in the background, connecting all things. And I love what you said, Vashti, about, if it wasn't for those traumas, these heroes, so to speak, would not be in their journey. So it leads us to then believe maybe, possibly, trauma is inevitable but necessary. And it's a driving force in some aspects. So maybe these trauma points we see in film, we see in ourselves, in our lives, is what catapults us, activates us, inspires us to seek change or seek difference. I love that you brought up the complacency, right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting. At the beginning of every hero's journey, there seems to be some sort of complacency. The background setting, the origin of the story is everything is just copacetic. And then all of a sudden something happens to really kick the character, the hero, into this now hero's journey quest or series of quests, and yes, Up is complicated because it has a series of quests. You're right. And then it's so brilliant how Pixar and Disney put together these complex quests and overlap them, like creating music in a symphony, if you think about it, like Doug the dog, like meeting him somehow has some symbolic value.
Yeah.
And the old man could then learn something about himself from this, originally what he thought stupid dog, and how often do we do that to symbols or things of meaning and say, that's and it's right in front of us. It turns out that very same thing that we shunned away or ignored or thought wasn't significant is actually the most significant. And not to get too biblical, but we find these values and meanings in the Bible as well, in the Gospels, when we're talking about and describing Yeshua or Jesus, finding, this thing of high quality in the least of these, like that very core idea, that he came from a very poor area, a very poor town, a fisherman's town, and then became this iconic symbol that liberated and inspired so many. So, it's interesting how through all epics and all myths, we find this kind of pattern, this paradigm, if you would, that's kind of in the background. And so, saying all that, we loved how you mentioned emotion and feelings and you cried. So if you would be so bold, could you share the specific scene or point in the movie in which you cried? And maybe why did it make you cry?
I think for me, different parts. Uh, First, it was when she was passing, um, and then he was left in the funeral space there by himself with the balloons. Um, and then
Wait, stay on that one first. What
okay,
about that scene really like connected with you to cause you to feel that you wanted to cry?
because I guess in a way I empathize or try to put myself in those shoes or um things that have happened in my life where I felt like, oh, I feel alone now, like I'm on my own type of thing.
Yeah.
And how, that's very traumatic. If you've invested yourself so much, and then to kind of lose something or uh people or the person that is there to support you, that sees you for who you are, and um, to kind of have that, end or be taken away. It's like, oh wow. So seeing him like all down like that, it's like, oh, like if that was me, like I would be devastated.
Yeah.
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 Um, and then, what was that other part? It's a few, and I'm trying to like figure out which one. But I think the part where, well, yeah, when the house was getting like taken away from him, because he hit the guy on the head, like he knew, like, damn, I fucked up. Like, damn, I fucked up. So now there, him thinking like, shit, I fucked up. I know what's gonna happen next.
Right.
It's like now you're gonna be without the house, which the house was the symbol of Ellie, his wife. So I guess through that whole like traumatic scene, and that happened like the day before, and then overnight, something just occurred to him, like that part of him when he was younger or something, and he just thought about this brilliant idea. But the sad part, it was when he felt like, damn, like I'm losing the home. Like this guy got his way.
And how do you relate to that for you to come out crying?
Well, because in a way, like if in your life you felt injustice,
Good one.
that right there, like that
Yeah.
kind of hones you into that, like, man, like I kind of know like how that feels in a way, even though it's a different kind of the way it looks is a little different, but the injustice in that. And it's like, but look at the bigger picture, look what's going on, this person was very invested, but then here you are, the real world, which is the ever-changing world around you, you have no control of that.
Right.
So for him to feel defeated, so I felt defeated many times. So it's like, again, it takes you back to like,
Yeah.
like what would you do? How do you feel when you're in that position and you don't have support?
Right.
Then I guess the next that really got to me, it was two parts. It was when the boy, the Boy Scout, he like they were going through this back and forth where he wanted him to kind of like have him in the ceremony when he got his badge.
Yeah.
And when he had when he was when Carl was promising him and doing the same thing that he was doing with Ellie, doing that, to me that was like, wow, like it was emotional, because it's like you don't really think about it. Like when you feel like you've lost something, you think that's it. But it's like you can take from that the things that mattered most, like keep your promises type of thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very something that really stood out to me.
Right.
And it's a good reminder as well. That's a very good lesson too. And then the last part, it was that even though he was going through everything, trying to make this happen, like, oh, I failed, I need to do what I promised with Ellie, the whole time, he was distracted with that he didn't bother to kind of go back to that to the book, the adventure book. And then when he did, he saw the pictures that were there. So then seeing that, you're kind of reminded of the past.
Yeah.
And then it's very sad because you see his reaction and how he's getting emotional. So then that makes you emotional too. So you remember the good things and stuff like that. But it was that note that she left in there that it was like, now is your turn, like go after your adventure.
Yeah.
If I'm paraphrasing probably. So even that, like that was like, wow, like that is amazing. Like that's like, you don't think about that when you're going through something, when you've lost something. Again, like when you lose something, you're just stuck there. So when you mentioned complacency, Vashti, um, that is that like, oh, this is what I needed to kind of move forward.
Yes.
But then at times in life, you probably won't get that. And you kind of have to, I guess, figure that out. And then that does take time.
Yeah.
So for him, it was there all along. And then symbolically, I feel like for anyone, it's there all along.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. I don't want to take too much.
That was good. That was really good. That was really good. You brought up a lot of really good points. Um, that, yeah, I remember those emotional moments. One I would like to include is finding out that they couldn't have children in the hospital. That was really sad. And for this young boy to come into their life and him playing that father figure was also extremely symbolic, you know? And so, like um, you said it like when he received the pin, but he received Ellie's pin and it was passed on to them. Like you are officially, part of the club. You know, that was really, that was tear jerking. Yeah, it was. Nicely said. Yeah, you definitely stretched a lot of things out. But in a pile of negativity, in a pile of rejection, in a pile of, traumas, all of this beauty is coming out of it, determined, and all determined to help the other, all determined to keep a promise because of love, you know. I love what you stated about the cross, like the promise, across your heart or whatever. But those moments, like you said, they reminded him of Ellie, and that book gave him permission. Like it gave him that permission. And you're right, we won't get it. We won't have something that gives us permission. Sometimes we have to create our own permission. We have to give ourselves permission to be our best version of self.
Wow, thank you both. Yes, it's really interesting how film reveals so much of us, and this is why we started this project, um, to help people start seeing how something as simple as film could reveal so many psychological, spiritual things in ourselves. For example, the scenes you brought up, Jasenia, that made you cry or evoke emotion, anybody witnessing that would interpret it different ways.
Mhm.
But the beauty of it is in every interpretation, it's based on someone's hurt, pain.
Yeah.
Now, knowing this is why Disney and Pixar are so masterminded, because they created something that's timeless in a sense. No matter what age you are, what are you with ethnicity, culture, gender, somehow humans will encounter such experiences like this that they can relate to. This, for me, is basically the premise of children's films. You know, it's not about this intellectualism so much, but it's about seeing these simple yet complicated symbols moving in interaction in relation to us that then evoke this intellectualism out of us. What you both just expressed was intellectualism. You were intellectually expressing and analyzing how you felt in relation to something you witnessed that you empathize with. You know, for me, I cried through this movie every time.
Wow.
And my cry points are with the boy because for me, we relate so much to that boy because we grew up without a father. So to see these symbols moving over and over, telling this story over and over, it's still in me. No man could come in my life and ever replace that or fill that void. That's an endless void. But then as we mature, we have to create meaning out of that. So watching the boy create meaning out of having no father and then be rejected by the old man and not give up because he didn't think that, it was time for him to give up. He was so persistent, right? He
Yeah.
kept trying and trying and trying. And it was beautiful how the old man saw parts of himself in the boy.
Yeah.
And that's what like initiated the relationship. But then the boy traveling through this journey, making friends with some unimaginable creature, and then trying to protect that creature, seeing that that creature is equal to him. Like that moved me so much.
Yeah.
How could this young man have so much love for something he didn't even know existed or looks different from him? And he was willing to put his life on the line to protect over these ideas that it's a mother and it needs protection trying to get back to her babies.
Right.
Regardless of what it looks like, you know? So for me, it personally hit home with racism in the world, especially here in America, you know, like, and being a young man that grew up through that, navigating that, still navigating that, you know? And then above all, like the biggest, like tear jerking scene for me was exactly when he received the Ellie badge. That meant so many things at once. So many things. Like he didn't achieve not only a criteria within the Boy Scouts, but he achieved something greater, you know, and it was just like so moving and so like the old man was on stage with all the other dads, but somehow this symbol was more meaningful than the other dads, not taking away from them, but just was more meaningful, you know, and that dramatic, you know, pause of, is anyone here for you? You know, that really struck a chord in me, you know. It made me remember of all the plays in school that no one ever showed up to.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? He showed up for him. And in that moment, we feel so connected, like, yes, if only that was us, you know, and really embrace that and love that, you know. So film does so many things to me alone, you know, because they have so many deeper meanings that are reflecting my own traumas.
Right.
My own belief of lacking, you know. And as much as we may awaken and learn more about ourselves and grow through things and really get further in our healing journey, these movies still remind us of these things. They don't just go and vanish, you know, like it's not like you go and watch that movie and now you don't cry anymore. It's like there's something there that's so personal.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not in all movies, right? Like, but it's these certain movies like The Lion King. I cry through that movie all the time. I feel for Simba, you know, like, damn, Simba, you know, we were naive like that. So young and wanted to do so much, you know. Love the songs in that movie, right? Like, when I'm king, I can't wait to be king, you know, like that whole skit was amazing. Like, it really showed how, from a young perspective, we really think we have the world figured out.
Yeah.
You know, and his father, Mufasa, you know, looking over the valley and saying, everything that the sun touches is our domain. We govern. We take care of that. We don't just control it. We take care of it. You know, Mufasa was busy protecting the antelopes and all the other animals from the hyenas. That was his full-time job.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Simba says, well, what about that area over there where it's dark? You know, the elephant graveyard. He's like, we don't go over there. You know, for me, this was showing us like there's a balance to life.
Mm-hmm.
Because the king is king, he cannot go everywhere.
Yeah.
He only can only go in certain places, and that keeps that balance. You know, and this movie for me was a lot of balance ideas in them, you know. And but what did you guys think as far as you remember about the Lion King? Like what were some themes of ideas or paradigms of meaning that you really gathered from that you liked or really resonated with personally?
I think as you were talking, I just wanted to compare Up and The Lion King real quickly. You see a dynamic of a father that is missing to a father that desired to be in his child's life and took him under his wing. That's what I loved about The Lion King. His father would wrestle with him and try to make him stronger, preparing him to take his place at a young age. And unfortunately, at a young age, he lost his father and intends loses himself. And I feel like, again, if I may compare both movies, you see that Simba goes out to find people that will accept him. friends that fight for him, not a part of his pact, but outside of his pact. The same thing with this, right? Like people that will support you and push you to where you need to be. It reminds me of this dynamic here. Not the ones that you think will be there for you, but the ones you have no idea will push you towards where you need to be. And that's what they did. They did in their own fun way, laughing and making him feel accepted. Like, I feel like they allowed him to be a kid again. I think he missed that, because he had such a large leadership role. And then when he understood the dynamics of the world, you know, um, it reminds me, sorry, I'm just going a little area. It reminds me of the show we were watching last night, being forced to have an adult mentality at a young age, being forced to accept that this is your destiny, not because it was for you as an individual, but because of the world that you live in. This is your role, Simba. You have to step up into this role. And he was scared. He couldn't fight against his uncle. He couldn't, this was his uncle. He was like, what was his uncle's name?
Scar.
Oh, yeah, right. The evil one, Scar. Yeah, just fighting against the evils of the world. I don't remember the in between, but I just remember when he had to face off with his uncle and how he he died the same way his father. He killed his brother. He died the same way he killed his brother. And the hyenas were the one who felt abandoned. Another one felt abandoned by him. Did all his dirty work, but was never promised or given what he said he would give to them. With the hyenas and being shown that they were the left out, they were the pushed aside, so they acted like they were. But yet they had emotion. They were like, "Yo, you promised us this, and and therefore they avenged the death on him when he fell down into the pit." That I found interesting. But that's what I have so far.
I think mine is gonna be a little short just because I gotta refresh it a little more. Um, but yeah, like everything you guys were saying, and just how he was being brought up, for a child to feel safe and secure, to feel like, but you see, that can also be a little conflicting and again, we're going back to the complacency, feeling safe and as if nothing will ever go wrong. And so it was great. Obviously, it was great that in the beginning, we were able to see the father and son dynamic. That was built already. So he already had that in him. That even though the events that occurred, the events that happened, because he himself, he was supposed to die with his dad. That's how evil the uncle was. And to me, I'll just, put it to the side, throw this to the side, that it shows you, and this is a movie for children, for families, that even families can hurt you like that. So even him being a little naive when he was little, like he's like, oh yeah, my uncle and all that stuff, because he's my family. He's my uncle. And like not knowing what kind of person or what kind of intentions this person has using you as a pawn. But him being able, like you were saying, Vashti, like, he found friends along the way, people that did accept him. They were all different. Um, and in a way they were helping him, like, you need to go back. Um, so that, like the going back type of thing. And it's beautiful that the friendship he had as a kid with Nala, that it grew when they got older. Um, but it's like part of him, parts of him didn't change, which was that child, that playful, kid. But for him to come back to his people, like they lost this incredible person, this leader. And for him to come back, you know, is like hope was always there. Um, so it was just beautiful. Like, can you imagine like coming back to your people and in a sense, um, provide them that hope, like we can get out of this. This won't remain the same. And eventually it didn't. So it's almost like seeing like everybody was free from, I guess, like this pain, this disappointment, or I don't know. For me, I think about like the ancestors in a way. Um, and the music, come on, like with the music added, like you just want to cry, like like you're there. So that too, I'm big on the music and the sounds. So yeah, I know I could say a little more, but um, that's what I have to share.
It's all right. It's more than enough. Thank you. Yeah, we agree. We love what you guys are talking about and saying. For me, a part of a part of this movie that really resonated with me was reflective of who we are, as a magician archetype, was Rafiki, the monkey or the ape. Um, and Rafiki was a crucial part of the journey, right? Like you see in Mufasa's life or journey, he was there, and he seemed to play this crucial role in terms of initiating Simba into his rightful, inheritance as prince, when he lifts him up. And then you see the scene where Rafiki's in his treehouse and, he draws Simba and then makes the mark, and then finds him again. I think the way it came to him was like sort of like a dream or an experience with the wind. He woke up and then he started drawing like the hair around Simba's face to acknowledge that he's now an adult. And then he starts laughing, this iconic laugh that I dare not even try to imitate, but it gets me going every time because it's like a revelation. The king is still alive, like, and so he sets out on his own quest, his journey to go seek him and find him. And he finds him. And the way he approaches Simba, the adult version of Simba, is so interesting because it just speaks to the magician archetype, this pattern of being the old wise person and helping the hero along their journey, equipping them with the necessary tool or idea or, energy for them to go further and go deep within the abyss of in the belly of the beast, so to speak, and face their dragon, or in this case, face his uncle, Scar, who played a very strong psychological symbol in Simba's mind. And that's interesting for me because they emphasize that Scar was not physically strong, but psychologically strong. And Mufasa was the physically strong, but not the psychologically strong. He says a comment like, I got your father has the brute force, strength. I fell low in the gene pool, like kind of thing. Scar makes that reference when he's talking to Simba early in the movie. And it goes to show you how Scar even saw himself in the relation to his brother, and that plays a part when Rafiki meets Simba, because it's like now you're seeing an outside symbol interacting with Simba again. The last time this happened, it was Scar. And even though Simba got outcasted and ran away and met Timon and Pumbaa, they were not the same symbol as like Scar and Rafiki. Like Rafiki comes as like this all-knowing or wise connection to his father. So when Simba sees him, he says, "Oh, it's just you. What do you want? What are you doing here?" He goes, and paraphrasing, of course, I know where your father is. He goes, "You do?" It's like, "Yeah, he's alive. Come on, I'll take you to him." And Simba's all hyped up, all right, and he's taking him through this weird, hard to navigate path, right? Which is like super symbolic. Like Simba doesn't have an easy path to go find his father, and then comes across this very quiet pond, this magical pond, right? And he goes, "Look, it's your father." And then he goes and he sees his own reflection. And then, he goes, that's just me, you know. And then Simba in that moment starts realizing maybe this whole thing is not real. But then the most magical thing happens. Rafiki says these powerful words that evoke some sort of trance. He goes, "Look harder," and then taps the water, and the water starts creating these ripples. And before you know it, he looks. And when the ripples settle, he sees his father. And then Rafiki then follows by saying, you see your father lives inside of you, like, and before you know it, this storm happens, right? And of course, this is like psychologically happening. It has to be, right? Because it was just so unimaginable. The storm comes out of nowhere, and out of the clouds comes his father. "Simba, you have forgotten me. And because you have forgotten me, you forgot who you are." Like, and it's kind of like this African proverb that they're kind of enchanting in the scene, where it's like, to forget me, your father who represents who you are, is to forget who you are as a person entirely. It makes you reflect his encounters with Timon and Pumbaa when they're laying in the grass looking up at the stars, and Simba shares what his father told him, that the great kings of the past are looking down on us from above. And then the other two, Timon and Pumbaa, start laughing, like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," And then Simba's like, "Yeah, crazy, right?" Like, but he's confused, he's conflicted, he's not so much hurt by what Timon and Pumbaa said, but it just makes him think like, wow, not everyone thinks and believes what my father thought and believed. So that means something. That means that whatever was being handed down to me is not for everybody. But he doesn't learn that till later. But again, Rafiki plays such a cool, dope ass role for me, because watching this film, I saw myself more in Rafiki than I did in Simba, you know. But as a younger person, I saw myself in Simba, you know, because I was like, dang, he has a great dad, and but then to lose his dad, oh my gosh, I cried so much, because his dad played this heroic role. Like, and of course you're saying you're spot on. Like, with the music, it just gets you, like, the adrenaline rush, with the bird saying, "He's there, sire," and he's like, he just springs into action, leaping into danger to get his son. Like, and for a brief moment, I will be completely transparent, I cried so hard because I felt, damn, I wish my dad did that to me, or did that for me. And so many times of desperation and hurt as a child, I wish my dad sprung into action, like into the moment, to save me, regardless of how dangerous it was. And then, watching Mufasa come out of like the herd of wildebeest, to grab his son and protect his son at all costs, getting him up to safety, to then fall back and then jump out, like, it kind of like pulled you. It was this yo-yo effect of, oh my God, is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? Damn, I want him to make it, And to see like how his brother betrays him, it was just like, wow. Like, the people, like you were alluding to, Jasenia, which was so brilliant. The people so close to us can hurt us the most, and that's a very real thing. And I think children should be understanding that message, within these children films like that, pick that up, that people that are closest to you have the opportunity and ability to hurt you the most, you know? And I think for me, I cried the hardest because just feeling that betrayal, you know, we've in our own life felt that betrayal from close family members and people that we considered very close, you know, and it never ever gets easier to deal with, you know. And so we bring all this up not to just share our own life experience, but to also talk about how these heroes myths, they're not all the same, you know. And sometimes you could even look at it as watching a film in itself reminds us of very hero journeys that we've been through, you know. And so that's what we were trying to really, you know, share is there's been times in our own journeys as heroes that we wish certain characters showed up, like a Rafiki, a magician archetype, or a father role to come about, you know. But what do you guys think about that? You know, what do you think about watching these films and thinking about your own life and your own journeys? Between these three films, like, is there a film that demonstrates your hero's journey more than the other, or do you find that they're all pretty much the same? Or I really would like to hear from you guys.
I think for me, when we or when you put it that way, um, when I'm watching movies individually, obviously I am connecting with that in the moment. So I'm relating to what's going on. If it's with the hero in the movie, the main character, I am connecting with that in that moment, in that space. But overall, I can say that, like, in a way, there isn't a difference because they all resemble this hero, a hero's journey. It just looks differently. Um, but the idea is there. So what I'm seeing is like everyone is coming from somewhere at first. Uh, and it can either be where the story starts, and because you notice with okay, like with the Matrix, this guy Neo, um he himself, he's like here but really but not here. He's trying to find out more, like this can't be reality type of thing. And it starts that way, and then when it ends it's like, in a way, there is like there's the answer. And then with Up, and the Lions King, it they both start off with this happy story, this happy beginning. Um, and then as the story goes, you know, like all these things start to happen. But with Up, right at the beginning, like yeah, it was nice and sweet, but then it just like changed dramatically. But then they both at the end bring back this kind of like this happy ending that becomes this new beginning. So I don't know if I make sense, but in a way I don't really see like a huge difference. It's just the stories look a little different, but the hero's journey is always there.
I definitely agree, Sanya. I think for me, in terms of relatability, I always related with the Matrix the most personally. Having a choice to choose between what world is presented to me versus what is the truth. And that's why I always chose it, especially in Christendom, especially when it comes to serving the Christ, you know, being a follower of the Christ. And even in that world, being shown what is shown in the reality versus the truth. And I've always battled with that, so I connected with that the most. I totally agree with you. I do believe they all have a hero's journey in the sense they all had traumatic events take place. Because technically, Neo's trauma was experienced when he died, and Trinity had to save him, and it was like a aha moment. So I agree with you. They all had a level of death that literally pushed them to their destiny, which I thought is very impactful. And I really had to write that down because, I feel like I've been going through a lot of things lately and it's been very discouraging. And just trying to see, where does God exist within this trauma? Where does God exist within these difficulties? And how does he expect me to come out in this clay of mud that I keep on being presented to? How am I supposed to make it? How does he expect the best of Vashti to be portrayed in this when I'm being given rocks instead of beautiful stones? Trying to make a picture out of it. It's very disturbing. It's very discouraging. And trying to find that support even within that pond. So I agree. And I think that that's just the relatability. I can connect with them with my own experience right there. Like, okay, like these people are going through hard stuff and they were pushed into, they're pushed to their destiny. So maybe you're just being pushed to where you need to be at this moment. That's what's helping me mentally now that we talk about it and I'm seeing it from that perspective at this moment, that through the difficult times, that a flower could still be raised in a storm kind of thing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So for us to wrap up, I think this is one of the most challenging exercises ever, but I think you guys will do great. How can you, well, let me say this. Can you, if you can, please elaborate, but how can you identify yourself in your own hero's journey right now? Like, you see how, for example, in the syllabus on page 10, The Lion King, it breaks down like the different parts of the hero's journey that are happening. Like the ordinary world is the setup, and then the call for adventure is I guess we can say, the trauma that initiates us to, and then some of us refuse to the call, some of us don't answer it. Then you meet the mentor or the magician. Is there a magician role in your life? Do you see these archetypes, these figures in your life? Do you see yourself at the crossing of the threshold, like you're about to change or you're working on this change? I know Vashti is speaking about like living right now in this challenging time. That could be a crossing of the threshold in your story. So you see what I'm saying here? Like, as we try to analyze our lives in relation to a hero's journey, where do you think you are in your hero's journey right now, if you can identify? We can lead by example if you want, just to warm you up. Right now, to be honest, we are at the crossing of the threshold. We are in a moment of vulnerability. We are in a moment of humility. We are in a moment of being pushed down, and we are in the process of getting back up. And in that process, we have a mentor, a magician symbol, and we have a few actually. and we kind of push our hand out for them to help pull us back up. And they do that with their words, they do that with their time, they do that with listening to us and hearing us. And so we think for this season in our life, the very hero's journey we are on right now, we're at the crossing of the threshold. And within that, to come are these tests, and you meet enemies, you create allies. That's the kind of the next phase, crossing the threshold. And I guess we look forward to approaching the innermost cave, which is really interesting. That's the part where we really go deeper into ourselves and realize that this wasn't all random. It wasn't just chaotic. It had some sort of order. It had some sort of pattern larger than we could understand. And I think that's when we get to that point of God was there with us the whole time, and we can only talk about this because we felt like this in other heroes' journeys previously. I hope that helps. So please.
I think, and thank you for sharing that, Aaron. I think for me in the hero's journey, for myself, I am in between. So I am at meeting the mentor, and then in a way I am conflicted with crossing the threshold. And the reason why I say that, it's because like I have dealt with a lot of rejection. And then at times I do sit with myself and I say, well, what is the point of me doing all this? But then it's like I'm kind of hyper focusing on the individuals or certain settings that I'm getting that kind of pushback. But that's not the entire world. That's just part of it. So it's interesting that we're having this conversation because I'm actually saying this. um, but I guess every year has its season, and within whatever season I am in, it's either a battle, a leap, a faith, or I feel like I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be, and I trust that. And so I feel like I am in the in between of those things. So yeah. Um but then also within that, so I won't look at it as a like a ranking system, but you know, within all of this or meeting the mentor, being surrounded by like-minded people, um, like this space here, um, having that's a great support, definitely a great support, better than not having anything at all. Um, but then in crossing the threshold, like you have the idea, what you're planning to do and all that stuff. Um, for me, I can honestly say that sometimes there's not enough input from myself because of what comes after, which are the tests, the allies, the enemies type of thing. So then that kind of pushes me back to kind of be safe in a sense. But then it's like, I don't know why, but this has been the word of the day, the complacency. But then that creates that. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that because I already see people or just family, individuals that I did look up to. And then I learned that very hard lesson, which is, you shouldn't give your kind of like your power or just put all your beliefs into this one setting or um so yeah, that's what I'm dealing with. That's my hero's journey.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your transparency as well. Just said, yeah. I think this is a really tough question because I feel like I have to step outside of myself to see exactly where I am. I think when I think about my journey, I think about, and I've heard this mainly a lot in church and stuff like that. Like when you're being challenged, when you're being pushed, that's when you know you're at the right place where you need to be. Because, my favorite scripture in the Bible is when Paul asked God to take the thorn out of his side, that like he was like, yo, take this out, like help me overcome this. And God says to him, like, in your weakness, I am made strong. So I think for me is acknowledging the area of I can't do this. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to act like I can. This is a thorn for me. And I know I can't do this if you don't choose to step in. Acknowledging my humanity, acknowledging my, and I don't want to say weakness, because I think when you acknowledge your humanity, it's actually strength. Because it gives you the capacity to, and I always say that to people, is like, you're stronger when you know your capabilities versus when you know you're uncapable or incapable. When you think you could do something that you can't do, that makes you weak when it makes us stronger. So I feel like I'm in a place of, there it is, just sitting back and just remaining still and just watching God. And I don't know how to name that within the archetypes, but I do see God being my leader and guiding me along this journey of where I need to go because I don't know what to do. And I'm not going to act like I know what to do. But I know that in all the years that that I had to rely on him, I have not been disappointed. And so that reassurance reminds me and it provides me with peace. That reassurance reminds me that I'm going to make it. It's going to be okay. Just be silent. Um, and I feel like I'm being hit with one of the greatest areas, and it's the finances, financially, you know, and just watching God whip and weave in ways that I never thought. Like I know He's done amazing things in my life, but being here as an adult, that we're told we shouldn't need help because you should have it all together, kind of thing, and still being challenged in this area is just like, and watching God step in is like, and being the father that I need Him to be, the protector, that I got your back. Don't worry about it. Like, you're not a failure. You're not this. You're not that. And at the end of the day, the truth is, it's not even on me to do it. um, it's outside. It's outside entities that's affecting it. It's one thing, like, because we're told that, like, you got to step up, you got to do this, you got to do that, which I agree 1,000,000,000%. But what if you've done all those things and everything is shut down? What then? What if you tried and you tried and you tried? So then what? So, okay, God, I tried it this way, so let me just wait and see what you're going to do. And I feel like that's where I'm at. Like, all right, I tried. I just feel like I want to just break down. Like, I'm so sorry. But it's just like, I tried and I tried and I tried. Like, maybe I should stop trying and stop trying to take control of it and just let you do, because every time I allowed you to do, it came out perfect. It came out perfect. Like, I am because he is my life. Like, we give. So sorry, y'all. I know I just said it. You told me to stop saying sorry, but like, going through some of the hardest things in life to become what he needs us to be and pushes us out of that space of complacency could also be the most hurtful thing, because it takes us to a place that we don't want to go to. Um, I thought I was okay. I thought I was this, but I know it's going to be better to where I need to be. And I guess accepting that now is the hardest part of this journey. Uh, Being okay with God's way and not with my way. Um, Even though it hurts like hell. Because I've been through too many things for me to go through another lesson. I gotta learn something else. Like, I already gave you my life. I already said I'll live for you. I already said I'll do everything. But you having me do something else again? I'm freaking tired. I'm tired. You having me do something else again? Look, how many lessons you got? Where's the book so I can study? Like, where is it? And not being provided the instruction and how to pass this class. We just got to show up. And there are days where I don't want to. So I think I provided more information to your question, but I hope that within those full details, I answered it. So thank you.
100%. Thank you for that. You've reminded us that as much as we try to be smart and organize things such as a hero's journey and make order of it, like there's steps and we follow those steps to a T, it turns out we don't. Life isn't exactly like that. And so that's a great reminder, especially for this course, when we're talking about the hero's journey. It's not robotic, it's not systematic. And not everyone's hero's journey is the same, you know? And yeah, this class has to come with a box of tissue, probably next time. But seriously, though, thank you for that, because sometimes we find ourselves in a particular part of the journey, and then because of unseen events, we end up at the beginning all over again. And it feels like all the work we did was for what? Like it's for nothing. Like but we love the theological idea you brought up, Vashti, that when God is leading, it's perfect. There's no mistakes. There's no human ego error when we step back. And of course, this stepping back is not literal. It's very spiritual and very symbolic, even theopoetic. The stepping back is not releasing responsibilities, but it's actually taking responsibility. Saying that God created me so that I am not responsible for everything. That's big. And so it's on us to figure out in our journeys, what are we responsible for? And what is God responsible for? Right? What can God be responsible for? I guess is a better question. And I guess that would, in a way, strengthen our understanding of faith. Right? When I was a kid, I wanted God to come in some shape or form, like a superhero, just coming into my life and just saving me from the chaos, from the heartache. But that was me as a child. now as an adult, my relationship and understanding with God is completely different. And it's more hurtful, honestly. It's easier to believe in a fantasy. It's easier to believe in a bedtime story that ends well so that you can sleep well. But that's not always life, you know. But it's beautiful how God comes up in the unexpected places, you know, as you're struggling and you're struggling to come to a class. It's theopoetically interesting how it's in that class God is waiting for you to show up. And yet, like most and all humans, you are challenged with this: do I show up? And it seems like what we believe is the only thing that's stepping in between us showing up and God, you know. And no one has the right beliefs, but it's just how we believe things and the perspective of it, the angle of the scene. It really helps us see things in a different manner. Um, and like we said, this was going to be a really challenging question because it really pushes us to briefly look into ourselves, and if we don't do that regularly, it's hard, you know, but thank you so much for this. You guys are incredible. The things you brought up, Vashti, your transparency, Vashti, you are incredible. You're so strong and beautiful. Like, you've wasted no energy. It is all for something, and it's going to lead to something more incredible. Jasenia, in her intellectual mind of how she just explains things that we're all thinking about, love that so much. Thank you. And thank you for listening to an old person babble about their life experience and how they love movies. And thank you for being fluid as we are navigating serious topics, film, and also hanging on to our humorous understanding of humanity. This was amazing. We couldn't imagine what this session would turn into. Looking forward to the third and final session of this dialogue. And it's going to be focused on our final projects. Aaron will be participating as well. And so the final project, again, think creatively, but it has to demonstrate pretty much your understanding of the hero's journey, which we confidently know you two know through in and throughout. But it's just a matter of picking maybe a poem, a movie scene, writing a poem, any kind of, maybe a song. I don't know. Think creatively outside the box. As long as it symbolizes and represents a hero's journey, particularly your own, would be great. Because then that would truly demonstrate your ability to analyze the films that we presented, and understand the hero's journey as it relates to you, and understanding yourself, that capital S self, the better portion of us, the more divine, loving, more awakened, evolved, healed version of ourselves. So we encourage you to have fun with this. Don't overthink it. It's really, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I definitely did not want to interrupt you, but I did want to ask, with the final project, for the next, the final class. So, what is the time frame? Like, how long can it be so that each person gets a chance to present? Or
Definitely. 10, 20 minutes max, nothing Nothing crazy. A lot of it, if you do choose a movie scene or something, you're going to share it and then talk about it. Just explaining how it describes or really touches on your a hero's journey that you have experienced or you're going through in your own life. You know, brownie points for using any Jungian terms in the back of the syllabus. That would be awesome if you could bring up a few terms like that in your descriptions, showing that you understand it through more or less a Jungian kind of perspective when we're talking about archetypes and how they relate to meanings and symbols and whatnot. So, like today, we spoke about this father archetype. There's a mother archetype. We were talking about Scar a lot, who is a trickster archetype. Interesting enough, he also plays the shadow of his brother Mufasa. So in these films, you see Neo and his relationship with the agent. He plays like his polar. He's like a shadow. And Up, you see that his the old man's role model that he looked up to became like this shadow figure, kind of the dark side of what he uphold as justice and right and adventurous. So it's there, and you can talk about it. Free reign, really dive in and really try to see yourself in these things because we're not, so separated from it. But yeah, any other questions? Please. No. It's just a creative out of the box project, I know sometimes it comes off chaotic because there's not that many rules to it, but it's really just meant to try to get you to do something that we've never seen before. So if that's what you're aiming for, you'll do great. And just be yourselves about this. This is the whole point of this, it's not, don't overthink this. Trust me, it is more simple than you think. But just keep it simple. 10 to 20 minutes is great. If you want to do a PowerPoint slide, I know some of us are whizzes at that, please do if you feel like that organizes you better, go for it. That would be incredible. We do not shun that away. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much again for meeting up, showing up. That's huge. No shade to everyone else, but it's like you showed up and you showed up for yourself and you did it. And we talked through some amazing points in analyzing these films. So thank you again so much.